To start, the player would arrive on the outskirts of their old hometown. They've not been back since they were teenagers, leaving the sleepy town behind for bigger and better things, so returning has a bittersweet note. The reason for visiting is an invitation by an old friend. An old professor, in fact, whose latest fascination is this fabled wizard's tower in the town you grew up in. When you told him about it, and the looming presence the historic tower in the center of town cast in your childhood, the professor purchased it and moved in. He's now invited you to share his mysterious findings. I've approached this level openly. It is a small open world with some choke points. The first being the start, obviously, where the player can choose to explore as they please, and I've designed the world with a lot of discoverability in mind. The player can just wander about and come across something interesting that also gives them information about the world and the city and context to what they're doing there, and also lead them towards their goal, which is the wizard's tower in the middle of town. Once the player eventually gets there, they unlock a magical power that gains them access to the factory, which is where, close to the start, and it's where the professor, old friend, is being kept. Once they get there, they cross a threshold which releases the disease into the world, and then Act 3 is about getting the professor back into the tower to reverse the curse. So it goes in 3 phases, where the first one is mysterious, explorative, no combat, or perhaps very light, give some foreshadowing to not make it too harsh of a shift. But then the second one being light combat, more puzzle focused rather than explorative, and then the third phase is really a race with more combat, with a lot of bad guys, with a lot of raising action, running off towards the conclusion. So a contained story. I wanted this place to be beautiful in a way that only people who visit appreciate. I want the locals to feel like they've been left behind in this place that the player character couldn't wait to leave. And so there's this dynamic of like, la-dee-da, look who comes crawling back. This, like, with no malice to it, just a bit of funny back and forth with the people that you meet. But then there's like also this, element of sorrow that comes with the life that you left behind, with, the people and the relationships that were left by the wayside, and the life that was not lived, that was discarded. And then there's like the guilt of like, these people are kind of left in the past, but now the player character is also back to examine their own past. Up next, the gym. The Garden of Ned features a player controller that has an inventory system where the player can equip items like you would expect, as well as interact with weapons for combat. It also has different types of AI, one type for NPCs, one type for enemies, and one for animals. The world has plenty of items the player can interact with, which also interacts with these systems. The player has normal things like health, mana, and stamina that they need to manage and can affect using potions, for example. They can also craft and upgrade preset buildings. The project features a day-night cycle that affects the spawning of enemies, but that can also be used for other effects like moving NPCs, closing doors for the night, etc. The player can also sleep through the night, should they choose to do so. The combat system has 2 different modes, close combat and ranged. It has firearms, like a pistol, as well as magic weapons that have both ranged and melee combat modes. So, I know you're thinking to yourself, this should all result in a really great project, right? And yes, you would be right. However, it's not the right project for me to make it this time by myself, managing a life and a full-time job. So I've sidelined this, and this devlog is to document and reflect on my progress so far. Hello, I am Svante, the man behind the level design, in front of the camera, behind the controller. I want to thank you for watching my little devlog. It's kind of my first, but more things to come. But yeah, thank you for watching. I am looking for creative opportunities as we speak. The industry is in a bit of a state, and but yeah, maybe just like hit me up, and I'm always down for a chat. Always up for a chat. I'm always up for a chat. That sounded fucking natural, dude. Good job.